Alright, so this is a really short portion of the lecture series. Now, this is all about religion during this time period. So we're talking about the 1920s. This is what's coming out about. There's major events in religion and how religion corresponds with schools and the public sphere and what it looks like. So there's some major historical events that happen. We're going to talk about them. And if you have me later on, I might show you all a movie called Inherit the Wind. We'll talk about it later, though. Alright, so first things first. Fundamentalism came about during this time period. It's a literal belief in the Bible. It's going beyond that whole concept of Jesus is my Lord and Savior. It's like every word in the Bible literally happened. The Lord made the earth in 7 days. There was literally an Adam and Eve. Cain and Abel were real people. Methuselah was real. Everything that happened in there was real. It's a literal truth to the Bible. That's what the belief is based on. All right, Amy Semple McPherson. She was a Christian orator, obviously, and evangelist. An evangelist is really just somebody who goes out and preaches to large crowds in public and kind of evokes the idea of fundamentalism during this time period. Very popular in the 1920s. Very different considering the fact she's female. And even during this time period, religious figures tended to be male. And that's across the broad spectrum of religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. They all tended to be mostly male. All right, let's talk about Billy Sunday. Cool name, first of all, Billy Sunday. He was a very, very, very popular fundamentalist preacher. His big thing was he was flamboyant and he was energetic and he got people going. He was one of these people that could really get you like up out of your seat, praising God, that kind of guy. He called for what was called puritanical morality. So if you think back to US 1 and Puritans left England because they didn't think that the English church was quote-unquote pure enough. They were very, very strict. So he's calling back to this idea of very pure, very strict form of Christianity and basically denouncing the consumption of alcohol and science. And we'll talk about science in just one more slide. And there's Billy Sunday acting the fool out of the courthouse, out on the church steps. All right, so the Scopes monkey trial, 1925, Tennessee. All right, so John Scopes is accused of teaching evolution in public school. That's against the law in Tennessee at the time. The lawyers were Clarence Darrow and Williams Jennings Bryan. Williams Jennings Bryan ran for president 3 times. He was very, very famous, and he was the prosecutor. He was the person trying to get Scopes convicted. He was trying to enforce this law on him. And Darrow was an ACLU guy, Civil Liberties Union, that whole organization. Darrow was with that group. He came in to defend him. Now, Bryan was a fundamentalist, so he was kind of coming in as a special prosecutor. So Bryan was not even the main prosecutor. And there's a great movie called Inherit the Wind that kind of follows this to a certain extent. They change the names around, and the plot goes different ways, and it's a little more outlandish. But it's still a very good movie and kind of illustrates what was going on at the time as far as the perception of fundamentalism versus science. It's a very good movie. All right, so March 1925, Tennessee passed the nation's first law that made it a crime to teach evolution. So Tennessee was the first one. The ACLU promised to defend any teacher who would challenge the law. Scopes was very young, and he was the first person to basically start teaching it. He was arrested, and then his trial was set for that July. Now, there was no question as to guilt, and by guilt we mean he did, or what we call actus reus. He actually did the thing that was against the law, and he meant to do it. He taught evolution in schools. He was honest about it at the trial, and at trial the fight was really over the role of science and religion in public schools and in American society in general. So this was not an issue of guilt or innocence. This was an issue of what should schools be doing? What role should religion play in schools? What role should religion play in government? And this was all relatively new at that time. Almost overnight, this became a national sensation. I mean, it was in the newspaper everywhere. Everyone was keeping an eye on what was happening with Scopes' trial. This would be like today, the most recent trial I can think of that was that major, would be the Trayvon Martin trial, and how everyone was watching the result of that. They were doing the same thing for this back in 1925, except they were doing it through newspapers rather than through TV news. Now, Scopes was found guilty, and he was fined a grand total of $100, which even back then was a good bit of money, but it wouldn't break the bank. It wouldn't kill you. The Tennessee Supreme Court later changed the verdict on a technicality, but the law outlawing the teaching of evolution remained in effect. So he never had to pay the fine, but the law stayed on the books. They never declared the law unconstitutional. There was just some random technicality that basically knocked off the fine. They didn't bring it back up because it was a big hullabaloo, and Tennessee didn't want to deal with it, so they didn't charge him again. All right, so there's Clarence Darrow and Williams Jennings Bryan. And if you take a look on the bottom right, you'll see John T. Scopes. But take a look at what's going on in this little political cartoon. It's quote saying, Papa. Basically, it's they're making fun of Darrow. And Darrow was the ACLU lawyer trying to defend John Scopes, who taught evolution. So this cartoon is clearly trying to make fun of Darrow, who is basically not really pro-evolution, but at least he's fighting for that side. So he's saying Papa to the monkey, and that whole idea that we're descended from monkeys. And there's a great scene in Here at the Wind, which I'll make y'all watch one day, where basically there's these, I guess, carnival barkers, what you call them, and they got a monkey in a cage, and he's like, this is a clear example of de-evolution. Just making fun of evolution, basically, making fun of Scopes, making a big, again, hullabaloo about this issue at the time. All right, so that's all we got for religion, guys. Thanks for watching.